Hi, welcome to the panel session where we are celebrating the various perspectives of the donor egg journey. I am your host, Rebecca Rothstein from Donor Egg Bank USA, and I'm going to pass this along and our wonderful panel will introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Victoria Nino. I am a mother via egg donation, and I have two children, a 6-year-old and a 17-month-old who has yet to sleep through the night. So I'm a little tired, but I ended up using 2 egg donors, which wasn't ever the plan, but after exhausting our first batch for my daughter, we then started the process over with frozen eggs, whereas the first was a fresh. Do I need to tell anything?
Give your Instagram account a little
My Instagram account is expecting anything, because when I started, I was literally expecting anything. I knew I was having fertility trouble. I did not know I would end up needing an egg donor, but here we are. And now I'm still expecting anything because I'm a parent, and if you're a parent, you know, like, things are crazy. But I have stage 3 endometriosis, which is why my eggs did not work. And I have become very loud and proud about my story so that other people can resonate and feel that they have someone to turn to and see that, like, life can be okay.
Thank you. I'm Carrie Jones. I am a Donor Egg Bank USA mom and happen to also be an employee at Donor Egg Bank USA now. Hi. And this is my son, Wilder Jones. He is 9 months old and definitely an angel. Oh, you've got one.
Let's see, I'm Kara Baldwin. I met all of you earlier today, but something that some of you might not know about me is I was a fresh egg donor for 3 cycles back about a decade ago. And so I have 4 donor-conceived persons that live in Europe and helped 2 same-sex couples conceive their children.
I'm Karen Weaver. I'm egg donor coordinator for Dr. Robbins in Spokane, and started out with being an IVF coordinator and worked with regular IVF patients and then third party. So I know both sides of this journey, and I'm very blessed to be part of it.
Drew Moffitt, medical director at Arizona Reproductive Medicine Specialists in Phoenix. And I have not been on both sides of the donor end, just one side.
Just one side.
One side.
I'm Amber Brewer. I'm embryologist at Arizona Reproductive Medicine Specialists.
Okay, here we go. Dr. Moffitt, you're up first. Okay, the pressure is on. So tell us, why did you become a fertility doctor?
Well, it starts, with I want to be a doctor, and then I want to be an OBGYN. And when I was an OBGYN, I don't know exactly why, but I wanted to do a subspecialty. At that time, there was only 3. GYN oncology was just too depressing. Maternal fetal medicine was just too catastrophically disastrous all the time. And so that left reproductive endocrinology, but then as that journey was going along, my wife and I had infertility for 5 years, so it was sort of physician heal thyself, and so that's how I chose doing infertility.
Love that. So Dr. Moffitt, you've won many Love Awards. What is the most gratifying part of your job?
Well, the best, I think, is like everybody else, that phone call you get to make. So I save the positive pregnancy test calls to the very last thing I do each day, so I can end on something good, because sometimes days are not good and sometimes good. And so that's the favorite part, is calling and getting that person that just screams or whatever and is really happy.
That would be my favorite part too. Although when I got the call, I didn't scream, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess we're really doing this, so. Okay, if you can reflect back on your first day treating a patient who used donor egg, what do you think are some of the biggest changes since now versus then?
So as you as you go through life, you get to a point where you realize that there are all these things that remind you how old you are. And one of them happened today where I was walking with Amber, and she said, "What are those pictures on the walls? Who are those old guys?" And I pointed to Frank Sinatra. I said, "You don't know who this guy is?" And she said, "No." So anyway, I'm going to tell you kind of an old guy story. So I was at the Jones Institute, and at that time the fellows were in charge of running the donor egg program under the tutelage of Anibal Acosta. And the reason why it's an example of what has changed so much is the Jones Institute was wonderful, but it was very paternalistic. You know, this is what's right. And so this is how we did it then, which some of you might be appalled, but this is the way we did it. They had a waiting list of maybe, 100 plus recipients. And the third-party coordinator, we'd all get in a room, and she'd have paper charts, and she'd say, these are our, 5 donors, and these are the 3 people I've picked for this donor, and that's the way it's going to be. The recipients had no choice. They did not get to see a photograph. We felt that seeing a photograph would somehow, I don't remember the reason we told people, it was like, if you saw a photograph, then whenever time you'd look at your baby, you would think of that donor rather than, anyway, I don't know what the paternalistic reason, but you didn't get to see a photograph. And so that's the way it was. And they just said, yes, thank you very much. And
So the physicians and the nurses were matching?
yeah, we did all the matching, and it was just sort of, this is what you get, and they were extremely grateful for that, and that's just the way it was.
So
As we
when did
come
you
along-
start to see the change?
When did you start
Like
seeing?
how long were we operating in the I'm just going to choose the donor for you? When do you think that we started seeing more choice?
More choice? Well,
The
I think,
patient choice.
I think it really wasn't to, when you began to have registries and websites and people could go and look on lists. That's really, I think, when it happened. I hate to say this, but many of us were actually pre-internet. I'm a pre-internet person, so I think that's kind of when it became that people could. I remember the decision to let people see the photographs. That was like this huge, critical, moral crisis for us. Do we let them see a photograph? I don't know why it was, but it was. So a lot has changed since then. All right.
Can you repeat that?
Our patients in RMA, I remember when we first started, probably around 2009, we started putting pictures that the patients could see. And they would always, we say, just bring a photo of yourself. And they'd always bring a photo of them in a bikini.
I missed that part. I wouldn't have forgotten that.
Wow.
Thank you. Now I'm just donors in bikinis. That's a lot of information. All right. So, Amber, the next one is for you.
Yes.
So, seeing Carrie hold her healthy baby boy, how does it make you feel knowing that you played a role in her success story? And side note, for those that don't know, Amber had the magic to help create Wilder over here. So
Well, first of all,
Thank you, Amber.
congratulations, and I'm very, very happy for you. Very excited. Seeing her with, of course, I'm happy. I'm excited, but I think hearing about her pregnancy was like very impactful for me, and it was a huge, sigh of relief. I don't know, people don't know the backstory behind, I don't know how much, Carrie, you want to share, but it was a lot of coordination with Carrie's cycle, and I had a lot more contact with Carrie than I did usually with our recipients because Carrie wasn't really a patient of ours. It was a huge coordination between multiple clinics and shipping eggs and sperm and embryos, and it was a lot of work. And when I first heard that she was pregnant, it was like this huge sigh of relief that she had gone through way more steps than most patients really have to achieve that goal, and that it was successful. And it was just, I'm very, very happy for her, but also just like so grateful that just everything came together and it worked out.
Yeah, just a little background on our story. When I was younger, and everyone in this room is gonna kind of cringe, but I froze my eggs when I was 40. Always, definitely too late, but we retrieved 28 or 26, froze 18. Like, I thought I was, okay until, because I hadn't met somebody I wanted to create a family with yet. And so when I met my husband, Danny, who's in the back of the room, I was 43. And so when we went to thaw my frozen eggs, then none of them were even viable. So I had been working with Donor Egg Bank USA for about 2 years at that point, never thinking that I would actually become one of our clients. So I was incredibly lucky when I got that phone call that said my eggs were not viable. I just my mind went blank. I didn't know what to do. I lost any little bit of knowledge that I had already about this business. And I called my friends at Donor Egg Bank USA, my coworkers, and I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, what do I do? And one of the first things that they said was, you gotta go, you need amber to make your embryos. And so we were like, okay, we're on this track, talk to Dr. Moffitt, let's do this. And it took us a while, to choose, obviously, our donor. Lindsay was a huge help in that. I just said to her, where do I even start? And the advice was make the long list and try to prioritize it. And so we did that, and the list was very long. And the one thing that I also had to keep reminding myself through the process was these donors have been screened. They have been screened by a company that I know and trust. Yeah, exactly. And because we are looking at, you're looking at every detail and trying to figure out what is important to you. And one of my friends at work, who is also the mom of donor-conceived children, she actually has 3 children from California Cryobank. And what she said to me is, when you're looking for a donor, you're never going to find the perfect donor because that would be you. So decide what is most important, as you grieve that DNA, the loss of your DNA in your child, decide what's most important to you. And so, all of those conversations that my husband and I had about trying to figure out what actually was most important, at the end of the day, it was my nose. It's an identifying feature in my family. Like my cousins, we all have the same nose. And so we looked for a donor that had my little upturned nose. And second most important for me was family heritage. I'm half Polish and grew up in a very Polish family. Those were a lot of our traditions, right? So I wanted to try to find a donor that was Polish. I'm Polish, Irish, German, and Swiss. Trying to find that combination was not going to be easy, but it turned out our donor had 3 of the 4. So it kind of felt like a meant to be after we found the nose and then saw that there was the heritage. And it's also funny. Anybody who knows anything about genetics is going to be like, it's a lottery anyway, so good luck. And Wilder looks exactly like my husband. So, yeah, exactly. So, it was really special. I still can't believe the experience that we got to have being part of this company, being part of Cooper Surgical, because we had access that a lot of people don't. Nobody else really does, right? That people sitting in here, our friends and family, have access to things that the general public does not, in terms of knowing who the best is, knowing where to go, and being able to leverage our resources to have that knowledge base to figure it out. So I feel that's a great gift, and being able to talk to Amber and just like have her walk me through what our embryos like looked like and the status of them every single day was such a gift. It was amazing.
Thank you. So what you may also not know is that Karen is the nurse who cycled Carrie and Danny's donor. Wow. Right? So the same question for you is, seeing Carrie holding her healthy baby boy, how does it make you feel knowing you played a role in her success story?
Well, one, working with recipients, I know that journey. So I was super excited, blessed, so many emotions, just because, one, she's part of the family that I work with. Not that somebody else isn't as important, but was super excited when I heard. And it's just super special to be a part of that.
Well, thank you. Also, fun fact, Wilder was born during ASRM last year. Well, Victoria and I are at dinner, and I get a text from Carrie, or get a text from Danny. It's her with her CBR box. Don't forget, All Donor Egg Bank USA patients get free CBR collection. Anyways, there was my shameless plug. But I get a picture, and I'm at dinner with you and Camille and Rachel, the 3 donor egg moms, and I was like, oh my God, Carrie's in labor. We're all hysterically crying, and it takes a village. So, and I'm so glad that you're a part of Carrie's village. I'm a part of the village too. I got a FaceTime call when we heard Carrie was pregnant. She was driving in the car. She's crying, I'm crying, we're all... Anyway, so thank you for being a part of the village. So Carrie, knowing that Wilder is still young, how do you plan to share your Donor Egg Bank USA story with him as he gets older?
That's a great question, and we haven't really figured it out yet, to be honest. We're learning and asking a lot of questions and watching other families who are kind of, who are donor-conceived families, like Victoria, I follow on Instagram, and actually pre-ordered your book. That's all about, like how your hearts match, and I just loved that. That really landed with me, because I said to Danny when I was pregnant, I want a lot of pictures of Wilder in my belly, since he doesn't have my genes. I want him to know that I grew him. Yes, I grew you. Epigenetics was a huge comfort to me during that process. I loved just that whole idea. So we're going to be honest, we're going to be transparent with him. We don't know exactly how, but I have a spot saved in his baby book for us to also write it out, because I still, in terms of like his delivery, I have to ask Danny what happened, because everything is a blur. What happened next? What happened next? So we're trying to write everything down sooner rather than later so we don't forget. But he's gonna know from an early age, and we're also, one of my girlfriends before I took this job also became a donor egg mom, and so I had an experience with her. Through her experience, I shared the experience with her through her experience, and one of the things she said was like, she always tells her kids like, how'd you get so cute? Mommy made you that way in her tummy, so that they still feel like she feels like she played a part, because the genetics aren't there.
Victoria, you're up. Oh. So do you have any advice for Carrie as she's beginning this journey?
Well, I'm already crying. I had no idea all of these people were like part of your, like, that was just very surreal for me. Gosh, I mean, you're killing it. Like, I don't have any advice for you. I think you're already doing the right things by looking to others for education and to see what's what other families are doing around, talking to your child, because your child is here now. Like, you're a mom just like anyone else, right? And I think all you can do is do your best. And obviously the love is there and the connection is huge. I mean, as soon as you walked in the room, he lost it. And I think that's probably something you probably worried about at one point, right? I know I did. But I think the biggest thing as a parent via egg donation is transparency and openness and advocacy, and just helping normalize this for our children, and talking to him as often as you can, being honest with him about how he got here, which I know is really
I know. That's why we invited you. Okay, so Victoria, you're on deck. Okay, so as you know, Victoria is a mom of 2. She used a donor egg to grow her family. Will you tell us a little bit about your journey of becoming a parent via donor egg?
Yeah, it's a long one. I'll make it short. I, like I said, had stage 3 endometriosis. I didn't know that I did, although if I had a good doctor when I was in college, I probably would have known at a much younger age, because I had very long, painful periods, debilitating pain. I mean, I had to take heavy narcotics. I had to miss school. I had to miss work. And, took birth control my whole life, trying to not get pregnant. Got married at 29, decided the horoscope our baby was going to have because we were going to get pregnant on our honeymoon. And 3 years later, we were like, why hasn't it happened yet? And went to the doctor, fertility doctor, and did a workup and learned that my eggs were not great. At least we thought so. But I was young, at least that's what they told me. I was 32, I think, at the time. And so I kept trying and trying, IUI 5 or 6 times, IVF 3 or 4 times. Never got any eggs. Finally had 2 that grew, and she was like, let's retrieve the 2. I was like, really? So we went to retrieve the 2, and we got 1, and it didn't fertilize. And the other one was actually black in color, which many of you in this room know what that means. And so that's when she sat me down and talked about an egg donor. And at the time, my husband was very against it. I wasn't on board either, but I was already starting to research, amongst all of these cycles, like what next. And through her, she talked about epigenetics, something that you resonated with, which ultimately was what helped me get on board with the idea. Now I realize how unimportant that ever was as a mother, but at the time I needed to hear that. I needed to know that I had some influence. I needed to know there was a connection beyond DNA, a biological connection of some sort. And she told me stories of her patients that would come in with their children and how they looked like the mother, and I was blown away. And I thought, oh, for sure, I'm going to cheat the system. I'm going to find an egg donor who looks just like me. And so I did that. Well, unfortunately, her eggs were like me too. And the day before her retrieval, my doctor called and said, I'm sorry, we have to cancel. Oh, this was my Hail Mary. I finally got to this point. And so we took a year off. We were very sad, very angry, couldn't be around family, couldn't be around friends. And I had this weird spiritual experience in Thailand with a monk in the rain. And I was like, let's go again. And my husband's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, we need to find a new egg donor. And he's like, what? It's raining, And I'm like, just trust me on this. And monks don't even talk, right? But he gave me this message. And so we came back, we got a new doctor, and he looked at me and he said, you can't find your doppelganger. Cut it out. He's like, she doesn't exist. I'm like, fair. He said, find a couple things that you need that are important to you. And it was heritage, similar to you. I'm French, German, Irish, and I needed to find some of those things. And blue eyes, for some reason, was important to me, although my husband is Colombian, so he canceled all that out anyway. And so I found an egg donor who did not look like me, but had similar heritage and blue eyes. And she also had a proven cycle and 2 children of her own. And so we got 3 embryos. I got pregnant on the first try, which is my 6-year-old daughter, which I can't talk about without crying because she's amazing. She's truly my soulmate. she was like, the child always meant for me, without question. There's like something about her, like we were connected in other lives, other worlds. Like we have this saying, like, I am you and you are me, because we are truly like mirrored. Even though we look nothing alike, we are mirrors to each other. And we had 2 other embryos, which, you know, you get in this like belief system that embryos are babies. They're not. And we thought we'd have 3 children. Those other 2 did not take, which were probably even harder for me than any other IVF, because they were my daughter's siblings, the most important person in my life. And I felt like I failed her. And we were done. We said, we're going to have 1 child. It's going to be okay. And she would say to me, Mama, don't give up. She said, you can do hard things. Just get new eggs. And I looked at her and I said, I can't just go to Trader Joe's. It's not easy. And she would remind me, you can do hard things. These are things I say to her. She said, we're not quitters in this family. I'm like, okay. She's like, go get me a baby. And I'm like, okay. So I told my husband, I said, I think we got to get new eggs. He was like, what? Did you go to see a monk again? You know? I said, no, your daughter. And he said, all right, fair enough. And so we decided to go frozen that route, because we had fresh for the first 2. And as you know, the first one was so devastating. I could not go through that again. I didn't have the time. I had my daughter at 38, so I was 41 when we decided to try again with a new donor. And so we went with frozen, and choosing the second donor was, I think we did in 20 minutes. I was like, oh, she'll work. Because once your baby's here, you recognize it's like, you're not choosing that person as your child, right? Like, I found someone with similar heritage. She actually didn't even have blue eyes. She had green eyes, I think. I don't even remember. Green or hazel or something. And I liked some of the things about her personality and what she stood for. Like, that to me was more important. And now here I got 2 embryos out of 6 frozen, which I always tell people, like, don't rule out frozen, because 6 frozen made 2 embryos, where I had 31 fresh eggs that made 3. 1 baby. So I'm wrapping this up, I promise. I know I like... Of those 2 embryos, we had 1 that was inconclusive and 1 really strong, genetically tested. They were both grade A, B, AAB or something. And my doctor said, let's use the inconclusive as a test round, because we gotta get this, you know, we gotta get you pregnant. And so I was doing all these ERAs, and I came in multiple times, and I kept getting canceled. The first time because I ovulated. The second time I came in, and she brought me a test, and she showed it to me. She's like, look at this. And I'm like, oh, I have COVID. She's like, no, you're pregnant. I was like, what? That's impossible. She's like, you're pregnant. I'm like, that fast? She's like, no. Like, you did this somewhere else. I'm like, what? So I called my husband, and he was like, yay. I'm like, no, I don't think this is a yay. I'm like, this isn't possible. He's like, no, it's not possible. Have them pee. Tell them to let you pee again. So I ran down the hall, and I peed again, and it was even stronger. She's like, I'm sorry, I can't do the ERA. And I was so mad at her. I was like, just do it. I'm not pregnant. Long story short, that ended in a miscarriage, unfortunately, which was not a surprise to me, but still very hard. And so after that miscarriage, I did get COVID. And then somehow COVID like regulated my hormones, and my doctor was like, you have never looked better. Let's go for it with your test round. And my test round is my 17-month-old wild boy. So we still have that other embryo, which is going to stay there forever, because he doesn't sleep. But yeah, it's a wild turn of events, and multiple people to get me here with my family today, and I wouldn't change a thing. Sorry, I know that was long.
Okay, I think I'm going to wrap 2 questions into one, because I think I know the answer. Okay, so this process can be full of the highest highs and the lowest of lows. How do you protect your mental health throughout your journey? / how do you talk to your children about their conception story? I think it's I feel like you're good.
Okay, I'll figure it out. I think the mental health thing is so important. I think for all the doctors in the room, like I hope you're talking to your patients about this a lot and often and making sure it's a priority because, you know, I had a doctor who was kind and compassionate, but she didn't offer me any resources. And I've since started a foundation to help people going through third-party reproduction, not just cope and sit around in circles with people that understand you, but to be educated on epigenetics, on genetic grief, on how to talk to people about this stuff, how to talk to your family, how to talk to your friends, how to talk to your kids. Because there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and you can't just deliver the news to someone and send them on their way. So to protect my mental health, I found other people that had been there. I did a lot of research. I interviewed people. I have become very public about it, so I have been lucky enough to meet a lot of really incredible people to help me put those pieces together. In terms of talking to my children, like I said, it was really hard at first with my daughter, and now it's just so easy. It's just a part of who she is. It's a part of how we became a family. And we've used a lot of analogies, but she knows what a sperm is, an egg is, a uterus. She's schooled the whole kindergarten class on how babies are made, which I'm not sure how the teacher feels about that, or the other parents, but I think it's great. I'm proud of her. And I think kids are ready. Kids are ready to talk about this stuff. Like I would love every parent to talk to their 2-year-old about how babies are made. We don't have to talk about sex, but we can talk about the components. Because, going through donor conception, that makes our family a part of diversity. And just like any other, person who's in a diverse group, we just want to be included. We want to feel that other people understand us. And I think that starts with little kids. I think that starts with you educating your kids on, hey, families are made in different ways, and we all come together differently, and it's okay, so that they're not like looking, or why doesn't she look like her mom, or are you the real mom? Like, let's try to avoid that stuff. I think it's just a matter of awareness and talking about it.
All right, Kara, you ready for us?
I'm ready.
Okay. Will you tell us a little bit about your journey to becoming an egg donor and why you decided to do it?
Sure. I learned about egg donation probably like my sophomore, junior year in high school, sitting in bio class with Miss Sweeney. Shout out to Miss Sweeney. She's a wonderful science teacher. And I remember just sitting there, we were talking about like reproduction, reproductive genetics, and how some families make their family. And it was like a quick, maybe 1-sentence line about egg donation. And I just remember sitting there in class and being like, oh my God, I want to do that. And I don't know why. I don't know why I felt that way, but I was sitting there, and I remember coming home from school that day and talking to my mom, like, I'm going to be an egg donor. And my mom was like, over my dead body. And I was just like, no, I'm going to do this. When I get older, I'm going to do this. I think this is so incredible that this is an option. And then fast forward to post-college, I was in graduate school for genetic counseling, and one of my professors worked at CT Fertility, which was a fertility center in Connecticut. And he was my mentor. He's an incredible genetic counselor. And I just learned more about this process, and I was like, wow, I still have that feeling. I feel like something's missing. I feel like there's something I can do that's bigger and beyond myself, and I want to do something. And I went through CT Fertility, and they only had a fresh program really at that time, since it was about 10 years ago. And I remember filling out the paperwork, and I you get the options of like, do you want to meet these people? Like, do you want to be open, ID disclosure, anonymous? And I just put the ball in the parents' court. I said, I don't care. This isn't for me. It's for you. And whatever journey you're on, I'm here for it. So, making that decision was an easy one for me. And I checked the box of whatever they want. And it just so happens that both the families I matched with wanted to meet me. And both these couples flew from Europe to Connecticut. And I sat down with each of them. I had lunch with one of the couples. I sat in a clinic room with the other couple, and we got to know each other. And I kind of feel like good people attract good people, and they're really, really good people. And one of the families, this is a really, really unique journey, and this is not, every donor's journey, but, I've gotten to become, good friends with one of the couples that they live in Berlin, and they've got 2 little boys, Julian and David, and we've become kind of like pen pals over the years. They sent me a photo album when Julian was born of all of his baby photos, and I was going to ESHRA back in like 2019 before COVID, and in one of my emails to them, they emailed me on my birthday, Christmas, like all of that stuff, and I emailed them on the boys' birthdays, and I wrote them an email being like, I'll be in Vienna randomly, and they're like, oh my God, please come to Berlin. We would love to have you. We'd love to host you. So I spent a weekend in their flat meeting Julian and David in person. We went to the park, we hung out. They're little, but they know 3 or 4 languages because they're European, and that's just, better than us. And so, we're communicating in like broken English and things like that. And it's just incredible. It's just such an amazing experience. I feel like I'm the lucky one that I got to be part of their journey. And that they've just been so gracious and including me in some of that. So, and I think, not that you asked me this question, but I would love to share what they did. Heinrich and Marco are the dads that live in Berlin. They obviously had to use a gestational carrier as well. Her name is Mandy. She lives in Minnesota, and they created this storybook for the boys. So it's a storybook with pictures of me and how they chose me. And in one of our meetings, we went to lunch, and they took a photo of the 3 of us together, and they did that. And then they took pictures of Mandy and Mandy's pregnancy, with them, and ultrasounds and all of that stuff. And these boys have had this photo book since, forever, since they can remember memories. And when I came, they were like pointing at the photos of the book, and like, this is you. Like it just kind of all came full circle for them. And so, sorry, that was a very long way of saying that's how my journey has been. And then one other thing, which is absolutely amazing, they had leftover eggs and embryos from their cycles. And these dads called me one day and said, we're done. We've got our 2 boys. We have the family we've always wanted. And we're not going to use any more of these eggs or embryos, and we would love to gift them back to you. And just like gift all of them back to you, our embryos and everything. And they paid for a lawyer in California where I was living at that time, and they gifted me back the rest of my eggs and the embryos that they've created. So to do with whatever I would like to do. And my immediate reaction was like, what if one of my sisters needed these, right? Like, what if something happens and I actually need these? And so they've given me a gift back, even though I felt like I was, the lucky one in their whole story.
Amazing.
All the claps for Heinrich and Marco. They're very, very special people.
It's beautiful. You two okay? No. It's so beautiful to see like the whole story and all. It's so powerful. Thank you for making me do this, Riley. Okay, now I can't see. Okay, Carrie. Hearing Kara's story, how does this make you feel? And what do you wish you could say to your donor?
Oh boy. Okay. I knew Kara I knew Kara before I knew that we would need to use an egg donor. I had watched your video on our website talking about it. Yeah, we changed her name on our website, but
Kara to Sarah. Nobody was gonna know.
Right. So, because one of the first things that went through my mind was like, who are these people who actually donate their eggs? Like, who does that? Why do they do it? Who are they? What has their experience been? Can you hold this for 1 second? I don't want to drop the precious cargo. And I thought of Kara and thought, my God, she's amazing. She's brilliant. She's beautiful. She's kind. If it's people like that donate eggs, this can't be so bad. So that's how that made me feel, just thinking about that. And what would I say to my donor, or my donor, to the egg donor we chose? I hope you know how you've made my dreams of my lifetime come true. It's, I always knew I wanted to be a mom, and so when my eggs weren't viable, everything kind of stopped in life, and she made it possible for me to have everything I've ever wanted. And some days I'm nervous because I have an amazing husband and an amazing son, and I'm like, this is all too good. How did this happen? So that's what I would say to her, is that she changed my life and made it everything I ever wanted it to be.
Thank you. Your question's next. I'm gonna come back to you. Karen. Yes. You're up. What support or information do you feel is important for donors to receive before and after the donation process?
At the initial visit, while we're going through the process of, what's expected, how the process works, all the consents, all of that stuff. First and foremost, and I heard it a couple of times over the last 24 hours, 48 hours, is I stress the importance of how important they are as a human. That they're not just a donor. They are, basically part of our family. And as they're going through the process, I basically say, at any point in this process that you don't feel like you can move forward, no questions asked, you just stop. Because it's life-changing for that recipient, and it's life-changing for that donor, as Carrie understands. You want to feel good about the decision that you make as a donor, and you don't want to have any regrets. And with that, I educate them and say, if you change a spouse or a boyfriend or whatever, you need to share what you have done, because you should never regret the gift that you have given. So I always protect my donor first and foremost, and always educate. And every time they cycle, we go through the same thing again. But I also remind them that these eggs are connected to heartstrings, and they have to, and I get very emotional with this too, as my team knows, so it's okay. They're attached to heartstrings, and when you are growing these eggs, you need to walk your life as if you were using these eggs yourself. So they understand the importance of the process. And so my whole entire staff, as do I, just love and hug on them the entire process. And I just have to remind them over and over and over again that they are first and foremost the most important. And then when going through the process, those eggs are then connected to somebody that is banking on having a family, and the importance of that.
That's beautiful. I love that eggs are attached to heartstrings. It's so beautiful. Okay. So donor egg is becoming more discussed in society and culture. We see celebrities using donor egg. We also see celebrities that we know use donor egg that don't admit that they're using donor egg. That's a whole other panel. We see celebrities using surrogates and gestational carriers, and women are more and more becoming open about their personal stories on social media or just in general conversation with their friends and family. What I want to ask to Dr. Moffitt is, now that you're seeing, all of this discussion more in mainstream conversation, what are your hopes for the future of Donor Egg?
Well, one of the things that was new, a term that was new to me at this meeting was this idea of grieving your DNA. I'd never really framed it that way. And that's a very powerful thing, I think. And the question is how to help people get beyond that. And, often I would think in my mind as I'm trying to help this person get over that grieving the DNA is like, hey, I've been doing this a long time and nobody has ever had buyer's remorse. Nobody has ever brought their baby back and said, maybe when they get in their teens, maybe, but they moved on. But so how to help somebody get over that? I think maybe having videos of these kinds of very powerful emotional things are very important. But just trying to help people realize that what their goal is. On our door we have the logo of Family Building Families, and that's the first thing they see when they walk in the door. Now, granted, we're a dysfunctional family, but how do we help them focus on what their goal is to have a family? And I think about how many people I have failed helping them make that bridge, because the reality is I don't know what the statistic is, but maybe only 20% can I convince to do donor egg. The other people can't get over their grieving their DNA. Yeah, and so I think that's what we need to do, is to try and help them, because I think of my family and what it would be to not have my family. We need to be better at helping them have their family.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, we've got our last question. Does anyone, Stacy needs a tissue. Where are the tissues? Yeah, where are the tissues? Oh my God. Emily, find us a tissue. Okay, we've got one more question. Oh, Danny, super dad. There we go. Super dad. Thank you. He's amazing. And he's so tall. Okay, the last question. In one word, how would you describe your donor egg journey?
One,
2, if you must.
worth it.
There you go.
Devastatingly magical.
Fulfilled.
Blessed.
Wonderful.
And proud.
Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, panel. We'll get. Oh, we have questions. Yes.
Can hold grief over time for the things that come up over time. There's not going to be a set point, and I think understanding that is important in helping people to get to the place where they might be ready to do donor egg. The idea that you have to be over it to then move into it is a barrier for people.
It's impossible to, by the way.
You
It's
will
not
have
realistic.
points over time, and that grief is okay. Just like accepting our child's origin story is so magical and special. And I just want to say to the moms up there, like, having wonderment in your child is one of the greatest gifts that a mother can give a child. And when we can honor like that they have their own cool genetic tree and story, even if you don't have an open ID, just them knowing that, yeah, wow, that's so you. Like, I wonder where that comes from. The curiosity is what sustains them and helps them to feel really at home in who they are over time. So anyway, I could go on all day, but that's just what I wanted to add, that you don't have to be over the grief to go through the process. You just have to understand that that grief does not take over your love. Your love will be this whole separate, beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Yeah, I think there's a shift that happens at some point. You're in a very dark black hole, and then little by little there's light that comes in, and at some point there's more light than there is darkness, but there's still a little bit of that darkness there. And then your child comes and it's like, what was I ever thinking, you know?
And it doesn't mean anything about your motherhood.
Right,
And this is what I tell
right.
clients, that like when you have those little grief moments, it has nothing to do with, and it doesn't make, and so that's the thing, is like the post donation and pregnancy, just understanding that that's okay for those feelings to come up. They can exist,
Yep.
and they have nothing to do with, they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. She's gonna lead my next genetic grief session.
Did you already exchange? We're going to. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, that's very powerful. I think writing, one of the things we do, I lead this series, it's a 6-week series, and in the genetic grief series session, one of the things we do is we have them write a letter to their genetic child. And it's a very, very hard thing for people to do. But once you get through it, you can start that shift that I was talking about, and starting letting a little more light in and starting to reimagine your child, because it's still your child. It's just a different vision than what you originally had.
One last thought, I promise. But the kids also, for parents who have donor conceived children, understanding that just like we have those little bits of grief, our child might go through that little bit of grief about those parts. And that's, just understanding that they have that journey, we have the journey. And so we don't have to fear that, because we know what it's like to have a full, complete love and have this other part of grief. So it's a good model for your child to be able to, obviously maybe not share that grief with them, maybe share with the therapist, but to be able to hold your feelings in that way about the whole experience.
Yeah. There's times my daughter has said, "Oh, I wish I had that from you," and I'm like, I know that's hard, huh? Like, I hold space for that, because that's her grief showing up, but she's always quick to flip it, but we're the same in other ways. We're same on the inside. Our hearts match. That's the name of the book that we wrote together. And we always talk about how our hearts match, because our outsides don't. And I tell her it's okay to feel sad about that sometimes, Well,
and there's probably parts of her. I know with my daughter, she's, oh my gosh, she tans. Like, she's just gorgeous. Like, there's things about her that I'm like, I wish I had that.
I say that more than she's totally,
I'm
absolutely.
Like, my donor is, just beautiful and skillful. And so just as she may see things in you, you see things in her.
Oh, she hears that every day. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, panelists.